We have for you tonight on 207 the latest in our series of interviews with the candidates this fall. We're talking to all of the candidates for major office in Maine. And with us this evening, David Costello. He's the Democratic nominee for the United States Senate. Thanks for coming in. It's good to have you here.
Thanks, Rob. Glad to be here.
As we speak, we've got 4 weeks to go until the election. And I think it's safe to say there are vast numbers of voters in Maine who have no idea who you are.
That's correct, yeah.
So, should one take this campaign seriously?
I certainly think so. The reason I'm running is because I'm very concerned with the Congress. I believe it's broken. And I think simply, quite frankly, to fix it, we need to do a lot more than simply change who we elect every couple of years. We need to substantially reform our governing practices and institutions and, eliminate things like expensive candidacies and funding, those kinds of things. And I don't believe Maine's 2 current senators are doing enough. I don't believe they're supporting the kind of reforms that will really make a difference in Washington.
The reason that your campaign is not well known is because so many Democrats support the independent candidate in this race, Angus King, who caucuses with the Democrats. He's running for his third term. And a lot of Democrats and a lot of moderates are very happy with him. Is there space for a candidate like you to really make any headway?
Well, I'm trying to create space. And what I'd like to say to Democrats is I'm the restless 100% Democrat. I appreciate the fact that Senator King caucuses with Democrats, but at the same time, I look at his approach of, frequently stating reaching across the aisle isn't working in today's Washington. It's good PR, but it doesn't deliver results and benefits, and that's really why I'm running.
We've heard from so many candidates over a long time now that Washington is broken, that we need people who can reach across the aisle, who can make the system work. Why do you think you can do that when so many others have said that they would do that, they've gone to Washington, and then nothing changes?
Because they're not pushing the kind of reforms. The system doesn't work, and it won't work unless we change the practices and procedures that allow Congress people or senators to actually get work done. And I would say things, we've got to ban filibuster, we've got to ban gerrymandering, serious campaign finance reform. I would even go further. I would have term limits across government and even retirement mandates that would allow for more churn in Congress, as well as electing newer people, newer voices.
All of those ideas have been out there for a while. None of them have been put into effect. Why don't they gain traction?
Well, it's hard to say, other than the powers that be who benefit don't want the change. And that's why, and you know this, the vast majority of Americans want significant or meaningful political change. And that's what I'm trying to offer, because I offer more than those that we got close, but I look at some long overdue constitutional reforms as well. And yeah, go ahead.
Let's talk about some of the nuts and bolts pocketbook issues that affect Mainers. The high cost of living is one that we hear about the most when asking people and doing surveys. That is the #1 issue for Mainers. What would you do to suggest policies that the federal government can put into effect that would genuinely deal with the high cost of living?
Well, the good news is inflation rate is down below 3%, so the Fed's done its job. What the Congress needs to do, the Congress can provide resources. There are a lot of existing tools, whether it's increasing minimum wage, whether it's increasing tax credits for low-income families or families with children. Those are the kinds of things where the federal government can provide more assistance. This Congress isn't doing this. This Congress is focusing on political gotcha moments, as opposed to supporting the kinds of things. Even Social Security, we can fix Social Security by raising the cap on the payroll tax, income cap, as well as if we needed to, we could put more general revenues in. And to get the kind of revenues to balance the budget, to bring down the deficit, we've got to raise taxes on the wealthiest among us who've done extremely well in corporations.
Some of the pocketbook issues that you have put out in your campaign, one, a proposal for Medicare for all,
correct,
including vision and dental benefits, also universal child care and aftercare. These are programs that would be really expensive. You know what the problem is right now with the federal deficit. The government spends far more than it takes in. Can the government afford hugely expensive new programs like the ones you're suggesting?
It can if we have the kind of tax reform that I would support. And also, remember, much of that spending goes directly into the economy. When When I talk about these programs like universal pre-K and aftercare, or expanding Social Security benefits to seniors who need more money, all of that money is spent. It goes right back into local businesses, local stores. It goes back into the economy. So it's money well spent.
On a scale of 0 to 10, what, 0 being no impact, 10 being changing the debate, changing the dynamics of politics in Maine and maybe across the country, what kind of an impact do you hope that your campaign will achieve?
Well, I would hope that people will look at a number of things. Again, we're not going to deal with all of our most pressing problems, whether it's climate change, insufficient retirement security, the kind of costs that you talked about in terms of health care and housing costs, unless we change the system. It just isn't working. And that's why I think there's a lot of support if we could get the message out. If people would listen to the message, I think most would rally to it. And that's what we'll need to do to get these kinds of changes. And that's why I say to young people in particular, if you really want to address climate change, you really got to change the Congress.
All right, we've got to let that be the last one. David Costello, thanks so much for coming in. We appreciate your being here.